start now. Hello, everyone. I'm the Deputy Director of the Council for British Research in the Levant CBRL at Amman. And on behalf of the CBRL Director, Dr. Ben Humphries, who unfortunately is not with us today, and my colleagues at CBRL, we would like to welcome you all to our first presentation of the CBRL Graduate Network Skills Development Seminar Series, an online program designed to support early career researchers working across the Levant. This series offers monthly sessions that focus on practical research methodologies and professional development with an interdisciplinary approach that spans archaeology, anthropology, history, cultural heritage, and the social sciences. The program fosters a collaborative space for sharing skills, navigating research challenges, and building a strong scholarly community connected to the region. To start this series with our first speaker, Dr. Sahar Khasawneh, I will hand it over to my colleague, Rubaina Nomini, who will moderate this session today. So, Rubaina, the stage is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome with us in the first session of the CBRL Graduation Network Skills Development Seminar. The series will feature monthly session led by distinguished professor from university across UK and Jordan. Today's session is titled Write a Research Proposal, Identify Researcher Question and Objectives. It will focus on one of the most essential stage of the research process, formal clear, related research question and setting available objectives. The lecture cover key aspect of the writing and preparing research proposal. Our speaker today is Dr. Sahar Khasawneh. Dr. Sahar is Associate Professor at the Faculty of Archaeology and Anthropology at Yarmouk University. She earned her PhD in 2015, specialized in applied science and archaeology. She is principal investigator on several national and international projects focused on enhance specific infrastructure and building human capacity in the field of the culture, heritage, conservation, and characterization. Her leadership include scoring prestigious awards such as Newton Khaldi Fund and multiple grants of International Atomic Energy Agency. Dr. Al-Khasawneh has published over 25 articles in high-ranking academic journals and has supervised numerous of graduation students across her discipline in the cultural heritage. We'll start now with Dr. Sahar, but please note that the webinar it's recorded, and for a question, this is webinar, so kindly I want to ask you to put your submit question if you may have in Q&A box, and we will take it after the presentation. Thank you for joining us. And Dr. Sahar, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rudaina. Thank you, Dr. Fatman, and thanks for the CBRL for inviting me to join this webinar series about the research proposals for early career students. Welcome all of you, or I can't see actually because of this webinar stage. Welcome to this session on writing a research proposal. Today, I will focus on identifying a strong research question and how you can set a clear and specific objectives. These are considered always the fundamental and the foundation of any successful research, whether you are writing a scientific paper or a dissertation or a thesis. So first, let's begin with understanding what a research question is. A research question is a pinpoint and the main focal point exactly on what you aim to discover at your work and your research. It is act like the compass that guides you through the entire project or your dissertation time or graduate study. It narrows a specific and clearly define the focal point that you can concentrate your efforts toward. As a result, your research question acts as a guiding light throughout your project and informs you almost in every step in your projects what you have to do and how you can do it. In other words, what you are aiming and your objective in this project and what are the methodologies or methodological or techniques you can use to achieve or answer your research questions. In general, you might have more than one research question in your dissertation or research. But if you want to be more focused, if you want to have a very specific and clear study research, it's better as a best practice to have one single research question for your research. So how you start in doing this research question? At the end of we will talk about the steps and the stages that you can follow to get to your research question. But you have to keep in mind that at the end, when I draft my research question, it has to be characterized with several criteria that we will test for the research question for this criteria. And those criteria, it include focused. That means that my single question or my single problem is very focused in one topic and one very specific topic. And we will see how this can be done. It should be researchable. In other words, I can do it. I can search for it. I have the techniques, the tools, the methodologies that I can apply and conduct to research this question. And you can have many questions in your mind and many topics, and they are all good for research. But in this way, I have to see if this researchable question is within my capacity, within my time frame. And that is how you say it is feasible. That can I do it as a master's student or as a PhD candidate? Can I do it within like 2 months or 3 months of my time? And that's how you test for feasibility of your research question. It should be specific. And that's why we said your research question, if it is one question in your dissertation or your project, then you are more specific and then you can achieve that within the time frame. It also should not be easy, like yes or no answer question. It should be complex. It should be, in other words, it should have a frame of methodologies and techniques to answer that question. You cannot ask, for example, did the Neolithic time started 10,000 years ago or 3,000 years ago? That is a very simple, easy to answer question. So it is, you can answer it, but it is not that complex that it deserves or it requires to be written in a research paper or in a dissertation form. And finally, it should be relevant. Relevant to your field of study, to your interest, and relevant to the, for example, the program you are enrolled in. So those criteria, that's what we will evaluate our research questions after we learn how to put the research question. We'll use this criteria to check if our research question is valid or not. So how you start to write your research question? Most of the students, especially as we notice here, some students who are not well trained during their bachelor degree or undergraduate degree on conducting research. So when they get to the stage of master's or graduate studies like master or PhD candidates, we find that they are always lost in how to put their research question. That's because they are not systematic in trying to draft the research question. So we are here as most of the studies and most of the like scholars teaching how to write your research question. They have got 4 main stages you have to follow one by one, followed by another. It's just not like a random stages. You have to follow it from 1 to 4. And that starts by first choose your topic. what topic I want to study or what topic I want to research. Is it in archaeology? Is it in astrology? Is it in mathematics? Is it in, for example, geoscience? So you have to know what is your topic. And we will talk more also in the next slide. And then we have to do the reading. And that's a very important step, especially when you are enrolled in a new program or a new topic. Then starting from the wide topic you are want to research, trying to narrow it, trying to be more specific in naming these topics. And after that, in the final stage, you should be able to identify what research question you want to ask, and that what research question you want to search and conduct in the next few months, for example, or the next year. So let's start more in details or exploring each step in details. Sorry. First is choose your topic. In choosing your topic, you have to consider how to balance between my interest, my institution requirements, and the available resources and times and other constraints that could face me during my study. I have to ask myself first, what excites me? What things I am interested in, especially in the field or in the program I am enrolled in. And if these things are available for me, are these I have the skills, I have the time to do it or not? And that's how you can identify your topic. For example, I am enrolled as a professor in the Faculty of Archaeology and Anthropology. So I have a wide topics I can explore with, including, for example, the Levant archaeology, the prehistory archaeology. I have, for example, in characterization of cultural heritage, or for example, value climate changes in the past. That is the wide or the topics that are covered within my institution. But then I come to ask myself, what exactly excites me as a professor in the Department of Conservation and Characterization of Cultural Heritage? It could be, for example, using the new techniques like synchrotron techniques, or trying to study the provenance of the material using the new techniques. That excites me as, for example, my interest or the field of interest. It could be also the paleoclimate or the geoarchaeological materials. So now I have one topic to search in or to look in. But I don't go for topics that are not within my example, my department or institution, and that students should be aware of. Like, for example, I'm not interested, or not interested, I cannot, for example, search in topic like gender equality payment, because that's not in the field of my institution or my program, the conservation of cultural heritage. Even if this is like an interesting topic, even this is a topic that is now considered a trend in of many areas or fields that people always talk about gender equality, especially gender equality payment, but that's not within our institutions, even if I am as a person interested in it. I cannot, for example, study the astrology while I am enrolled in the paleontology program, even if astrology is an interesting topic and it could attract many readers for my research, but it's not within my institutions. There's also many factors can affect in choosing your topic. For example, if I want to study in topics like the rising and decline of the Neolithic villages in Jordan, that is fair and that is an acceptable topic to be searched in, but I have now to consider the resources I have. Do I have the time to study all the Neolithic villages in Jordan? Or should I limit my study, for example, to Neolithic sites in central Jordan or in the southern part of Jordan? So that's why you have to understand what you are interested in, what is your capacity and skills, and what is the requirement of your department. And be careful as a candidate for master's degree or PhD, that the topic you are researching in is not the title of your research or dissertation. And that's what we notice for many students, that when they apply for their master proposal or master thesis proposal, they use the big titles as their research dissertation or the topics or their problem. But there's a difference. In fact, the title of your dissertation should always be the end of your proposal preparing. It's not the first. You first look for the topic you are interested in so you can extract a question out of it. In the next step, after, for example, I identified my topic and I want to study in the geoarchaeology of Jordan or paleoclimate, the ancient climate changes in the region, I now start doing more reading. And the reading is very important step in writing your proposal and then doing your research. Because the more you read, the more you can have a wider knowledge about the topic you are trying to search in or trying to do your master in it or your PhD in it. The more you are reading, the more you can identify gaps or identify some concerns, or you can see that some points have not been researched before. And then you can try to focus on these concerns or these controversies in some theories, for example, or you can find some studies that have short or was limited to specific topics. So now you can identify or trying to look where I can search and how much I know about this topic that can help me in doing my research in the future. You can do that by just going to the library or going to Google Scholar, and now you can find actually many journals are available online. So you have, for example, the up-to-date research publications about the topic you are interested in. Try always to go for the high-cited articles or books, because it gives you an idea of the updated knowledge about the topic you want to reach. And it shows that this is an interesting topic for many of the readers or the experts in the field. When you do the reading, now, as we said, now you can and have the chance to go from the wider topic you choose to a narrowing problem. You can start to see where is the possibility I can do a research here, and then my research will have an impact in the field of all this package of research, and it would have a value because I can recognize now that there is a gap in the research, that there is kind of controversies in some studies. I can fill in that gap. I can do a valuable work that can help in the future studies. Let's see an example. For example, I decided that I want to study on the paleoclimate change in the region. This is a wide topic, paleoclimate change. It can cover many issues. For example, it can cover, for example, what is the factors that led to the climate change in the past. We can see what are the forms of the climate change. Was it rising in the temperature? Was it, for example, melting of the ice sheets in North Europe? Or we can study, for example, what impact of these changes in the paleoclimate to human life or to animals, for example, or to human migration, or to the fauna and the flora that covers the region. So now you see, this is a wide topic, the paleoclimate change in the region, but you can narrow it to smaller topics. For example, I could choose that I want to study the impact of climate change in human settlements and establishing of early villages. That is a narrow topic. That I want not only the climate change, but how it affected the human settlements and how it helped in establishing the early villages in Neolithic time. But this is still, we are talking about a topic. But since now I know the topic and I can now focus even my reading about this topic, I can start in drafting my problem and I can start drafting my research question. At this stage, you are now ready to identify your research question. As we said, it could be unexplored topics or issues, unexplored aspects of areas, Or concerns. Some scientists show some concerns about hypotheses or studies, or, for example, data availability. It could be a conflict between two researchers. They disagree in one point, and everyone has his way in proving his point, but the disagreement is still valid. So I can study this disagreement. It could be a controversy between the availability of data and the research or the publications. So now when you can see these issues within your reading, you can now find where I want to do my research, because this is a problem that I think it's worth to research and worth to make a decision about it. In other words, your reading has helped you to find a gap where you can fill that gap with your research. When you do this and when you point to this problem, you start now by drafting your problem or research equation. And as we said, the research equation is always that what is unanswered equation you will work in the future. A research equation in this stage, it is that the one that will be covering 3 topics within the whole of your research. What is it about? Within your research equation, you have to understand what is it about, why it's worth reading, and how you will do it. And that comes with the future steps of your research, which is start by putting the research equation, by putting the aim of your research and the objectives of your research. And then in the future, you will see the next month, I think a session or after, you will see how you develop your methodology and how you develop the data analysis and then data interpretation. So as we said earlier of this presentation, that any research equation should be characterized by 6 main criteria. Again, they are how it should be focused, complex, clear, and researchable and feasible, and within your skills. So now, after I put my research equation, and I thought this is a good research equation, it worth to be researched and it worth to be submitted as my proposal. I have to evaluate it. And this evaluation, it takes time. It's not like just looking at the question. This evaluation, it takes like a discussion between you and your supervisor. It takes to do more reading to be sure that I am filling a missing gap in the research. So you have to ask yourself, is my question clear? It is not like ambiguous, it's not like too broad or too wide. Is it focused? Is it complex? It doesn't have like yes or no reply or answer. How, for example, you can ask yourself, how does social media affect the tourism? This is a research question. No one doubting this is a research question, but this is a very wide research question. You cannot do it within your thesis for master or PhD. You have to be more specific. It's clear, but it's not focused. You can re-ask your research question, is how the social media affects the flux of tourists to Wadi Rum compared to Irbid. This is more focused question. This is more clear question. I need to understand the social media effect and on one aspect, the flux of tourists. They are going to Wadi Rum more than they go to Irbid. Why? Does it have to do with the marketing of Wadi Rum? Does it have to do of people videotaping Wadi Rum more than they videotape Irbid and so? Your research equation should be complex. Like, for example, you can't ask, is social media affecting, or does social media affecting tourism flux? This is yes or no question. Yes, it does. How? That is, it became more complex. So this 4 steps, you can use it to evaluate your research equation before you start putting your objectives and methodologies. Let's take examples to see how this works. For example, you decided that you want to work in history and you want to research in history because you are enrolled in the history department, or you have interest in history and you belong to Faculty of Archaeology, which also matches or fit within this department. You can start with the question, what is the history of languages? Do you think this is a researchable question? Does it fit or match with the criteria we mentioned? In fact, it does not. It is too broad a question. This question can cover a whole career, not only within a thesis or a master degree time or a paper research for publication. It is too wide a question. But to narrow it and make it more feasible and more specific, we can ask more specific question. For example, and this is an example, in your study, it could be different. For example, we can say what geopolitical factors shape the evolution of Mandarin Chinese as a formal language in China during the 20th century. This is a more specific and clear question. We know that we want to study the history of language, but one specific language, the Mandarin language, and not in general the starting of developing Mandarin language, but how the Mandarin language became the formal language in China in the 20th century. What causes, what geopolitical factors affected that? So as you see, it is a very clear question. Anyone would see it or read it. He knows what you are researching in. He might also expect what your goals and aim will be, and he might expect what techniques you will use. Let's take another example in archaeology. In archaeology, for example, I could ask or put my research question as, what kind of material were used in producing Ain Ghazal statues? So I'm talking about the manufacturing technology at Ain Ghazal statues. But this is, okay, this is a researchable question, but it is too narrow. Too narrow, that means that this question could be answered within one paragraph or one page, or using one technique. It depends how actually you're going to run this project. If it's for a dissertation, a PhD or master dissertation, this is too narrow. If it's for a paper publication in a journal, maybe this is a researchable and it is acceptable, and because you can come out talking about the techniques that you will use and how these techniques are important for the analysis, and then you publish your results in that journal. But it is too narrow for a dissertation. So you can refine it within your interest and within your discipline by asking, what do the materials and the production techniques in the Ain Ghazal statues reveal or tell us about the Neolithic technological capabilities in the southern Levant? So I'm not only saying what the materials or what the technologies used in Ain Ghazal statues, but also I want to connect it and see how this tell us or explain for us about the abilities and the level of development in the Ain Ghazal site. Let's say another example of the questions. For example, this is in sociology. If we ask, how do gender norms influence career choices and long-term professional satisfaction among men and women? It's very specific, actually. It talks about gender norms, their influence in how you choose your career, in are you satisfied, and this has to connect it with men and women. But it is too challenging. Too challenging, that means it needs a very complex and maybe sometimes unachievable techniques to answer this question. The thing in sociology, especially, and some humanities studies, that if it is related to human beliefs or human perception or human thoughts or satisfaction, or whether they are happy or sad, sometimes it is hard to answer these questions. And if you want to research in topics like that, you have to make some standards and see if you're answering this question reach these standards or not. So it's always advised for students that they don't go for a challenging question, because they will be more distracted in the study during collecting the data, and maybe at the end they will not reach an answer for their question. Let's see an example in tourism. For example, you can ask how different types of social media content can influence the tourist perception. Again, this is a challenging question because you are talking about tourist perception. But what kind of perception? This is not focused, not clear. Which perception? As we said, it's always challenging to talk about human beliefs and perceptions and what they like or dislike. So to make this more specific, you can ask in different way. You can ask what different of social media content can influence their perception, but in a specific thing, specific topics. Safety and risk. How they say that this place is safe. Is there a risk in visiting this place or not? At a very specific destination in Irbid. I'm not asking in the whole Jordan, because now in the whole Jordan, it might be researchable at this time of, within the circumstances, but I became more specific by choosing the region. This is a researchable question. It is specific and clear. And I can do it, for example, within a questionnaire or like within an interviewing people and so. Or within, for example, taking the statistical data about people who visited the Irbid area and if they complained about the safety or they complained about the unpleasant experience here. So you see how from a question that was challenging, a question that was unclear, unspecific, you can narrow it down into a very specific and clear and researchable question. Now you have drafted your question. You have an idea how to draft your question. Now let's translate this research question into aims and objectives. Because there is no way of answering your questions without knowing what I will aim in doing during this research or during this dissertation time. Unfortunately, some students struggle with putting down the aim of their work or putting down the objectives of their work, because to them, the aim and objectives, they are mixed up. And to them also, the aim is intertwined or overlapped with the research question. And that's fair, especially when we are talking about the research aim. So students have first to distinguish what is the research aim and how is it related to the research question. The research aim is usually a statement. It's not a question like the research question. It is a statement. It's a conscious statement. A conscious statement means a very clear and logical statement that you make of your project. It tells you what you want to achieve at the end of the whole study. Not at one stage of the study, but at the end of the whole study. This statement describes your ultimate goal of this study. So the difference between the research question and the research aim is this research aim is usually a broad and less specific statement, while a research question is a specific question that you put for yourself and that you know you have to answer this question. When it is more focused, it is more specific. The research aim is more a statement that outlines what I hope to achieve at the end of my research. And maybe it will be better understandable if we put it into examples. For example, a research question we have: how did the trade networks influence urban development in the Nabatean kingdom? This is talking about a very Nabatean kingdom and the influence of the trade network that the Nabatians were following in that time, how it affected or influenced the development of these urbans or these cities. It's a very clear question. It is very researchable question. It's very focused and specific. And it is actually can be done within our master degree time. So how you can write the research aim? So my research aim is a statement, as you see. It doesn't have a question. It always starts to, because it's something I will do at the end during my thesis and something I will reach by the end of the thesis. So it is a future act. It is not now. So it is to investigate the role of trade in shaping the urban structures of Nabatian settlements. So it is more wide statement or wider objective. Let's take another example here. What factors contributed to the decline of a Neolithic Ain Ghazal site? This is also a question that is clear, very specific and unambiguous. We are talking, or we want to identify, or we want, to understand the factors that contributed or was the reason of the decline of the Neolithic site. So the research aim should be wider compared to the specificity in the previous question. Is investigate, for example, the social factors. So we'll talk about the social factors, not, for example, the climate change factors that led to the decline of Ain Ghazal site. Another example for here. What are the environmental impact of a plastic pollution in marine ecosystem? That's a fair, clear question. The aim is to assess the ecological consequences. Because I want to see the impact, then I will have to see the consequences of one of these reasons, like the ecological consequences of the plastic during their accumulation in the marine environment. When you have your aim of your study, and again, it is a broad statement that you want to achieve at the ultimate achieved at the end of your research. Now you have to put the research objectives. Maybe if you try to look at the objective aim goal, maybe by dictionary, they will all give you a similarity in the meaning by linguistic. But in the research, you have to distinguish between the research objectives and the research aim. When the research aim is the ultimate goal of your research, the research objectives are more the backbone of your study. They are the ways or the small goals that you will achieve by actions or by conducting some data collection, some analysis or others. You can think of it as to do a list. To do a list during your thesis. But the ultimate goal is what I want to reach by the end. And that's how you distinguish between your research aim and your objectives. So let's try to have more examples about that. For example, your research question was, what does the elemental composition of Umayyad coins reveal about minting practices and eco-control during 7th and 8th century? This is a very clear, nice question. And actually, this is a research that I'm now applying or conducting in one of the studies. So I'm asking about the composition of Umayyad coins, the metallic composition of the Umayyad coins, how the change during the 7th and 8th century has related or has an impact or influence, by the rise and decline of the Umayyad time. So the aim, I will form here a statement for the whole study, is examine the metallurgical composition of the Umayyad coins to understand the different techniques and its relation to economic policies of the Umayyad time. But how am I going to achieve this goal? How to achieve this goal is what I will follow in this research to achieve it. And that will be listed or drafted as the research objectives. Again, look, it starts with 2, because it's something I will do in the future. I'm still in the proposal stage. So to analyze the elemental composition. As long as I am studying the metallurgical composition, my aim, so I have to analyze the metallic elemental composition. So this is like a task you put for yourself to do. And that's what it says, that objectives are like a list of tasks or a list to do in your research. To determine the presence of and the proportion of the metals. I will have the data or the elemental composition. I will transfer it or try to determine what the elementals and what the ratios of these elements. To assess the variation. I did a study on different coins from different periods. Now I want to assess this variation. Was it higher in gold in the early Umayyad? Was it less in gold in the late Umayyad times? And then to interrupt the data to get to the relation of the minting and the compositional element of the coins. So as you see, these objectives are small tasks that I put for myself to achieve during the research, so I can get to the ultimate research aim, and then I can answer my research question. How you put the objectives? They are all related: objectives, aims, research question, and they all have to be clear within your study. Any unclear or ambiguous, it gets you lost during your research. So you have to follow a strategy in doing or putting down my objectives. And that's what they call it, SMART objectives. Be smart and use the SMART objectives. And what we mean by SMART objectives is to have it or to take it in 5 criteria. And that's where SMART came. It is the initials of these criteria that should fit within your objectives. You have to be specific. You know what you want to achieve or what you want to do. You have to be measurable, or your objectives should be measurable. In other words, I can measure with it. Did I do this objective or not? You have to have a criteria that tell you this objective has been done. Move on to the next objective. And we will see examples about that. You have to be the objective, has to be achievable. In other words, it is within my capacity, within my skills, within my time. It can be achieved. You can put any objective, and they are all fair, and they are fine and well, but it might take like 3-4 years to do it. It might take, for example, a lifetime to do it. So you have to be achievable within your time. Is this important for your project? That is the relevant. And that's very important, because we also notice in many proposals that are submitted, not only for master students, but also when we evaluate some projects for grant funding, that the objectives are not relevant to the work. It's just like it's things that they want to do because they want to do, or things they want to do because they think it is nice to do. But you have to choose the objectives that is relevant and that can lead you to achieve your ultimate goal. And finally, time bound. You can measure it within a time bound. It can be achieved within a specific time bound that you put for yourself, or your department put for you as a PhD candidate or master student. Let's see, for example, a specific. Specific means what you want to do. Is this a clear objective? You have a specific parameters you want to measure. You understand what you will do. For example, this is like simple example. You can always say it. I want to increase the profit of my company. This is an objective, but it's not specific if you don't say how much you want to increase the profit. Is 10 GD increase is enough for you? 100 GD enough for you? So you have to be more specific. I can't say, I want to increase the profit of the company 3 times than last year. So this is very specific objective. In fact, this can also be fit with a measurable objective and others. But let's take an example of this specificity within our interest in this session. For example, I can ask the same question, and I might repeat this question many times in this session. How did the trade network influence urban development in the Nabataean Kingdom? This is my research question. The aim of this study is to investigate the role of trade in shaping urban structures. So I can put my first objective. This objective is to investigate evidence of trade activity in urban Nabataeans. This is objective. I want to look in the evidence that affected the trade. But what evidence? Is this evidence I can look at for in ceramics, for example? Is it in architectural? I want to use the architectural as an evidence. Is it an example on writings or text or inscriptions? So what evidence here I'm talking about that will let me understand the role of trade in the urban effect in urban structures of Nabataean settlements? So that's not specific objectives, but rephrase it. and make myself aware of what I want to search in or what can help me to achieve my goal, is investigate epigraphic and textual evidence. So I'm looking for evidence, but a very specific type of evidence, the text and the epigraphy in the region, like a Greek or Roman. And I to use these as a reference for the trade activity in urban Nabateans context. They're very specific, and I know where these inscriptions can be found in the libraries, for example, in the museums, in previous publications. So I can now investigate this, look at this data, and collect this data to achieve my ultimate goal. To be specific in your objectives, you have to use strong verbs. These strong verbs can vary, like to investigate, and what other verbs come with it, like explore, identify, determine, evaluate. Or you can use as a measure, quantify, to measure, to estimate, or conduct, test, or correlate, classify. Those are very specific adjectives, verbs. I'm saying adjectives. Those are very specific verbs that can make your objective look smart. And then you can know what I need to do to achieve this objective. In other words, there's other objectives that are verbs. Again, there's other verbs that can be weak and you should avoid, because you will not know how to conduct or how you will do this objective, to coordinate, to support, to facilitate, to approach, to believe, to check. And that's what we said earlier, that in many humanities studies, many research questions are valid, but they are very challenging, especially when it comes with unmeasurable objectives. This next criterion of the SMART objectives is to have it measurable. Measurable, as we said, it can be quantified. It can be qualified, for example. You can say that this objective has been done and conducted. I will move on. If you don't have this criteria, then you will be stuck in doing this objective. For example, the same example we mentioned earlier, to increase the profit of company X 3 times than last year. This is specific and this is a measurable, because if I have achieved or reached the 3 times profit, then I achieved my objective. But if I was saying only to increase the profit of the company, I will not know, is 10 GD is enough? Should I work harder? Maybe I can increase the profit more. Was it 100 enough? Was it different than last year? But when you see it 3 times, then I can measure the achievement of this project. For the same example that we talked about, the Nabataean trade, let's put here another objective. To document and map 200 architectural features using drone-based photogrammetry and GIS within a 5 kilometers area of the selected Nabataean settlements. So I want to see the trade route and how they influence the development of the Nabataean settlements. Here, I'm talking about having a map and aerial photography of 200 different architectural features with a limited area of 5 kilometers. This is a very specific and a measurable. I can measure the number of architects. I have a GIS or drone images for it. I can identify the area, the 5 kilometer square area. So when I have that, now I can say that I finished this objective. I will use the data and to add it to my group of data to answer my question. Okay. Achievable. Achievable, can it be done? Can it be achieved? And this is actually a very tricky criterion that you might fall in, because many objectives you put it is achievable, but not within your capacity as a student, not within your time, within like 1 year. So you have to understand when it is achievable for my study or for my dissertation. This title here, or objective, We get it a lot from our students in the Department of Conservation and Management of Cultural Resources, because they work mostly in cultural resources management. So their objective, and not even the ultimate goal of the dissertation, objective one of their dissertation, to design a rehabilitation plan for downtown Amman, for example. That can be done, but not as you as a student, or not for you as for a publication research in a journal or something. This can be done as a plan, a 5-year plan, 10-year plan for the municipality of Amman, or for example, for the Ministry of Tourism. So it is not within my capacity. It's not with my ability or my skills even, because do a rehabilitation plan requires, for example, urban study of downtown Amman, requires, for example, business and marketing studies for the downtown Amman, conservation plan for downtown Amman. This is a big project. It's not an objective. It could be a project, not even a research project, rather than, as you call it, a government project. That's the problem that we get from our students, that they put very big projects, objectives. It is achievable, but not as a student. But going back to our research question and our aim, no, this is a new research question. How did ceramic production influence the development of cities? No, I'm sorry. Okay, I don't have another example for achievable. So let's go to the next criteria, which is relevant. And as we said, relevant, that what I will do in this research, the objective I will achieve in this project had to be related to my research question. For example, how did ceramic production influence the development of cities during the late Bronze Age in northern Jordan? So I'm talking about ceramic production and their relation or influence during the Bronze Age in northern Jordan. So I can use one of these objectives, analyze the elemental composition of 80 ceramic shards from 3 late Bronze Age sites in northern Jordan, using the techniques like XRF techniques. Why? To determine the technological and materials used. This is a very specific objective, a measurable objective, because I know that I will use 80 ceramic shards, and I know that these ceramic shards will be collected from 3 different Bronze Age sites in Jordan. I know using this technique and the analysis will help me to determine the technological and materials used. And then I can relate this data or this information I get here with the development, with the influential in the development of the cities. This is related to my study. But if I rephrase it in analyzing 80 ceramic shards, okay, but these shards are collected from Iron Age sites up to Bronze Age sites. Now I'm not related, because Iron Age is not within this study, is not within the research question. And that's how you have to be related. Some people would say, for example, to study the, in this same example, for example, to study the, or to compare it with other materials from Syria or from Palestine. This is also not relevant, because your study is focused on North Jordan and the Bronze Age in North Jordan. So you have to be specific, but also related to your study, has to help in achieving your study. Okay. In the next example of relevant, back to the same study we put, the effect of trade networks influence on urban development. One of the objectives we can say, to investigate burial practices and monetary architecture in Nabatean tombs. I'm talking about, or my research questions is about trade networks and the relation to the urban development. Studying the funerary practices and burial practices is irrelated and not relevant to my study. So this kind of objective is not only will not give me any help in getting an answer to my question, but it will also be a waste of time for the student or for the researcher. So anything you have to do in doing the research has to be valuable for putting down your conclusions and answering your question. In this case, trying to understand the funerary and the burial practices in during the Nabateans are not related to my study. Okay. Time bound, and that's the final criteria that you have to put within your objectives. The time bound is to have a clear time frame to achieve your goals or objectives. That could be like within 1 week, 1 month, or within the whole dissertation time. You have to be realistic about your deadline. For example, it has to be during my study. It has to be during the first semester of my dissertation and things like that. It should not be the whole lifetime career, for example. Let's see an example of that. Conduct all field surveys by March 26. That's within my study. I want to finish the field surveys by March 2026. Okay, that means like 6 months from now or 9 months from now. Is this achievable? Can I do it within 1 year to have all the surveys? As students, if there is within the webinar in archaeology, they know that this might be unrealistic time because one survey could take several seasons, and the seasons is always conducted in many years. So you have to understand the time within what you can do and what you are required to do in your department, for example, or your supervisor wants you to do. To sum up what we said, of course, that this was the last criteria that we want to talk about for the SMART objectives. Now, as we said, they are all overlapping, but they are all lead to a successful proposal that you can apply for your dissertation or your project or your grant fund you are seeking. So now you can sum it up in this table, where you have the 3 main topics that you have to do on your proposal, which is start by research question. After you identify your research question, you put your aim from the whole study. After that, you start to draft your research objectives. What is the focus in your research question? You have a specific problem. While in research aim, you have a more general purpose because it has to cover the whole dissertation. What is the research question focus on? And the actions and the practical steps you follow to fulfill the main. What is the level? The research question is more specific. The research aim is more broad because it covers the whole research question. While the research objectives, they are step by step, but they are very specific steps. Here it comes as a form of a question, while in the research aim, it comes as a conscious statement. In research objectives, it has to be a bullet points. It means I will do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. I will achieve it within this research. And the function, as we said, is to have a gap in your research for research question. To fulfill this gap, you will have an ultimate goal to do it. How to achieve this goal is by doing the practical steps of your objectives. If you have this has been established in your proposal, you can now start working into methodology and data collection and how to interpret your data. And thank you so much.